Hello, my name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and today I'm excited to welcome back Sanjay Puri, the esteemed AI regulations expert and host of the Regulating AI podcast. Sanjay has been at the forefront of discussions around AI governance, ethics, and social impacts. For those of you who may not have seen our first interview, Sanjay, could you please briefly introduce yourselves and tell us about what you do?
Firstly, thank you, Alicia, for having me back again. You're a
Yeah.
glutton for punishment, but it's a pleasure to be here. As far as what I do, I'm involved with the organization called Regulating AI. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and our focus is really in creating fair, democratic AI regulations globally. And we do this through education and awareness. We do it through podcasts, we do it through webinars, we do it through educating lawmakers, we do it through events that you were at some time back. And that's really our mission, to make sure AI serves humanity, but has some guardrails, as we call it, innovate responsibly.
Yeah, that's just so important. And since our last conversation that in March, I believe it was, have there been any significant developments in the landscape of AI regulation that you think are particularly important for our audience to be aware of?
I would say so, Alicia, as the landscape keeps changing because the technology is changing quite a bit. The EU AI Act is now on the books, it's formally done, and people need to start paying a lot of attention to that. EU also obviously has been using a couple of its other laws that they have in terms of market concentration and social media, also to use them to, I guess, put some guardrails around AI. And in the
Yeah.
US, what happened since March was we had several listening sessions by Senator Chuck Schumer,
Mm.
where he brought in industry, academic, civil society. And they issued along with Senator Rounds and Senator Young and Senator Martin Hendrick, on a bipartisan basis, they issued their report, basically, which really asked for US to increase its spending so that we can keep pace with the rest of the world. And we have continued to see a flurry of other bills getting introduced. We've had conversations about maybe having a privacy bill. We've had several other hearings, but in the US, a lot more attention is now at the state level, where in California, you have this SB 1047 bill, which is now passed and getting ready to pass the assembly. It's passed the committees, and then it'll go to the governor. It's met with strong opposition. There have been changes in the bill. So there's been the pro and the against side, because it could have serious implications. And then there's bills in Colorado. So in the US, I have a feeling it's more action on the state side, and Europe more on the EU side, and China obviously more focused on the state mission.
Yes. And your podcast, Regulating AI, continues to be a great platform for discussing the AI societal impacts and ethical considerations surrounding AI. What have been some of your most surprising or impactful discussions that you've had on the podcast recently?
Recently, and it's not been published yet because we have a huge backlog. We had
Mm.
Senator Rounds was there, Senator Young. These are two of the
Nice.
four proponents. And then we've had many other members of Congress. And so one of the messages I got from them is that the US is not going to do comprehensive AI legislation. So that was, to
Oh.
me, the one big takeaway, that we don't do things like Europe did, the big EU
Hmm.
AI Act. We had Congressman Jay Obernolte at the AI4 conference. He gave a keynote. I was privileged to introduce him. And he's the head of the AI task force in the House of Representatives. So he clearly said, we are going to do incremental stuff because this technology keeps evolving. We are not going to do.
Okay.
And also, given where we are politically in our country, it's comprehensive regulation, given different viewpoints, is going to be hard. So that was one big message or big thing that we got through our podcast.
Yeah.
The other messages, and again, lucky enough, we had the Attorney General of Vermont, state of Vermont. And the state of Vermont is in the process, and they've passed it through the various chambers to pass a fairly robust privacy law, which has implications for AI. So you're, as I said, starting to see things happening across the board from that standpoint. And we've had a lot of people from Europe and a lot of people from different backgrounds, and they have many different views on how AI regulations or ethics, etc., should be done. But the one consensus we do get is that there have to be some guardrails around this
Yeah.
technology. So that's a message that comes across. What is going to be the shape of those guardrails? We'll see. In Europe, it's clear. In China, it's
Mm.
reasonably clear they want privacy, but where the state controls privacy. And other countries are also getting into the mix, Canada, Japan, and then we've had guests from the African Union who talked about those. So one other message that we get, Alicia, and I'll end there, is that there is a feeling that the global south, and you would say, what is the global south? The countries maybe, and I want to use call them less developed countries that maybe are not being paid attention to. And these countries have
Yeah.
large numbers and populations. They feel that they are not getting the attention that they seem to be getting, even though the results show that the adoption of some of these AI technologies is even more in those countries than we have here. So just a very quick summary.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the United States probably isn't going to be doing a comprehensive
Mhm.
regulation law, but more incremental. Do you think that's wise? Or just to leave it up to we'll see what happens?
We are, as some of the lawmakers have told me, we are US innovates, the Europe regulates,
Oh,
and we are a low touch regulation country, according to a lot of the policymakers who have been on my podcast. Now, whether it is the right thing or not, I think time will tell. Now,
mm,
obviously, Alicia, there is a lot of unknowns. What I think we need to make sure we do is let's make sure the things that we know that can cause AI can cause us harm from, like biases, deep
mm,
fakes, other kinds of political interferences, and those kinds of things. We need to make sure that there is no opening for that. Now, you could
right.
say there are some existing laws. If there are, then let's make sure they're implemented. If there are some
Hmm.
gaps, then we need to do that. Then
Okay.
simultaneously look at what could happen too, because people talk about AGI, and we did a panel on AGI. We couldn't get the panelists to agree on what the definition of AGI is, and I don't think anybody can agree on what the definition
Oh,
of AGI.
really?
Yeah. So my point is, so let's button down the immediate dangers or challenges of AI, and then
Mhm.
start working towards potential it could be in the future.
I like that. That's a good idea. And at the AI4 conference last week, you were one of the key speakers discussing the AI regulations. Could you share some of your insights or takeaways from your session and how you see these shaping the future of AI governments and ethical considerations?
Yeah, I was very privileged to be part of what I thought was a fantastic conference. So you and
Hmm.
I both were there. Great turnout, got to meet a lot of interesting people and great panelists and great sessions. Was involved in several sessions, and I think the general theme again was what can be done. We are in an election cycle right
Yeah.
now. So that's one of the big issues there. And so a couple of things that came out is we need to make sure that there is no concentration of AI power also. We talk about the dangers of AI. One of the dangers of AI could be that we have this magnificent seven, and they basically control what happens with AI, which not that I have anything against this magnificent seven, but generally those are kinds of things that we don't want that to happen. And that's why we
Right.
broke up the Bell, the phone
Mm,
companies, and those kinds of things. But this is even more important. So I think
yes.
in one of our sessions, we had somebody from the Department of Justice. So market concentration was something we talked about. And I think the other thing came out was open source is also a very important piece of this whole, because there are people who, and there's again many viewpoints that open source that should we allow could end up in our adversaries or people who wish us harm, their hands along with the weights. But open source is really what drives innovation, especially in technology. When you look at what has happened with Unix and Linux and what's current framework of the Android and other infrastructure that you have, because it gives that the two people in a garage somewhere sitting in Ohio or in Nashville or any of those places the opportunity to be able to compete against everybody else. So I think market concentration, access, open source, those were besides the other takeaways.
Yeah, that's really good to keep in mind. And looking ahead, what do you see as the most pressing challenges or opportunities in AI regulation over the next year? And how can industry leaders prepare for that?
I think industry leaders need to really be very cognizant about AI regulation, AI governance, AI compliance, because we still don't have a clear handle on the explainability of how some of these models work, those large language models, when
Hmm.
they spit out information that might not be completely accurate or they hallucinate, etc. So what is the explanation for them? And the consequences of some of those things can be pretty consequential. So I think every company, at least that is going to be implementing it, needs to have some kind of setup in place that from a governance, from a compliance standpoint. But also, I think, Alicia, this is where rather than wait for regulations and all those things, some of our standards bodies need to start coming into play. We've
Yeah.
had ISO, the International Standards Organization, we have had IEEE, et cetera, and they've been working on some of these things. They can also come into play. I understand standards are don't have legal enforceability, but at least it serves as a mechanism of company, as they say, a good place to work or a good place, a good behavior, or those kinds of things. So it starts becoming an enforcing mechanism in some shape or form. So I think those things will start really becoming important.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining me again and sharing your invaluable insights. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you as the landscape of AI governance continues to evolve.
Thank you, Alicia. And I'm, like I said, be happy to come by. And it's been great. And it's a ever evolving landscape. So thank you again for having me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you.